Welcome to Console Room 2024. It is Sunday, and I would like you to please welcome our host for this panel, Miss Shannan Paul.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. Thanks for joining us. If you're in the room, we appreciate you. Give yourselves a round of applause for being part of Console Room 2024. So everybody in the room, I would like you to do me a favor, please. We also have a number of our attendees who are with us virtually. How about showing a little gratitude to them? Shout out and hello to everybody who's joining us virtually. Make some noise, everybody in the room, for them. We have had a great convention so far, and we expect wonderful things to happen on our final day of the con. So I'm very excited to bring two people to our main stage who many of our attendees, both virtually and in person, have had the wonderful opportunity to meet and get to know. And they also are being joined because technology is amazing and magical. We also are being joined by one of our other featured guests and guests of honors virtually as well. So everyone, please welcome to the stage first, Mr. Sylvester McCoy. Sylvester, are you back there ready to come on out? Hi. Hi. Yeah. Also, Lisa Bowerman, you can come on out as well. And joining us virtually, Miss Sophie Aldred. Hello.
Hello, Soph.
Hello, Soph.
Hello, darlings.
Hello. How are you doing? What's the weather like where you are?
Not as cold as where you are, I
know. I don't know if you can see me, but I'm dressed for indoors. This is indoors.
Have you dared to go outdoors?
No.
I glanced my head outside just to show my friends on Facebook, though, and I go, and there's a sort of plume of steam, and then I came back in.
Wow.
I mean, I don't dare to go outdoors because if I... Oh, look, can you send that over, please? Because, I mean, if I put all the clothes on, I need to go outdoors. If I fell over, I'd never be able to get up. I'd just be doing angels all day.
You need to go over the road and get some snowshoes like I did last year.
We heard about the bird sanctuary.
We heard about someone going over the road and getting lost.
So would you like to share that story? You're going to let them go ahead and tell us. So.
Yeah, what happened?
Well, I blame Tommy Knight entirely. Tommy said that he'd been to the place over the road and it was lovely, and did I want to go for a walk and hire some snowshoes? And I'd imagined those tennis rackets, that you put on your feet. But it's a lot more modern than that. Anyway, so we hired we hired the snowshoes. We went off walking, looking at various tracks and things, taking photographs of some rather worrying, very large tracks, which we were hoping weren't bear. Anyway, I think they were moose. Anyway, off we went, and we were talking because... as you know, I'm very shy, and it takes a lot to get me talking.
Sorry, is this the real Sophie Aldred, or is it someone pretending? Cosplay.
So once we'd been, I looked at my watch, and we'd been out for about an hour and a half, something like that. And I said to Tommy, "Oh, so where do we go to get back to the hotel?" He said, "Oh, I don't know." And I said, "Well, I thought you came here yesterday." And he said, "Oh, yeah, but I went on the other path." So I said, "Well, whoops, we better get back because I've got a panel in half an hour." And he said, "Oh, dear, well, I don't know where the hotel is." So we got to a bridge. So I climbed up onto the bridge, and I could see the hotel at least an hour and a half's walk away. And I thought, this isn't going to work very well. And just as luck would have it, we saw the only person that we saw on the walk coming towards us. And we accosted this poor person and said, "What can we do?" And he said, there's a car park just up here, and you can make a call on my phone if you like. So luckily...
Oh, I thought he was going to say, suggest that you just nick a car and drive back. Very British thing to do.
We could have done that too. Then hooray for Anton. He came and saved us and got me back for the panel just in time.
Hooray for Anton. We say that a lot, Sophie.
Hooray for Anton.
Anton is fantastic. Anton has been keeping both. Has Anton worked with you as well, Lisa?
Yes, he's
Yeah.
keeping an eye on both of them.
Yes, so Anton is so amazing that he's just magically watching both of them with like a magic lasso, like this way, please, no, this way, please. So if you would like to get comfortable, because we are going to be talking for not
Where
quite
do you
an
want to-
hour still, so you might want to sit over there in the comfy chairs that we have for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So-
I mean, Anton keeps, as under close control because of a certain person who got lost the last time they were here.
yeah.
I mean,
So are you saying Sophie set a precedent
Yeah,
and now
yeah.
Anton's like not out of my sight?
Yeah, I know. It's
I heard there was some confusion between what a river was and what a lake was. Was that right? You thought you could walk around the lake, but it wasn't a lake because it was a river.
Yes, that's right. Well, that again, I'm going to blame Tommy for all of it.
Tommy.
Because I was a Queen's guide, so I kind of know my way around. But I think I was relying too much on his navigational skills.
Tommy does give you a feeling that he's like, he just walks into every place with confidence and bravado. He's like, oh yeah, sure, I know where you're going. Have you been here before? Not at all. Not at all, kind of thing. But it was wonderful. So we appreciate you joining us again, although it is virtual this time. One of the things I thought would be wonderful about the opportunity to talk to the three of you in tandem and all together is to talk about the concept of collaboration and how you work as an ensemble, since all of you not only work together on the show Doctor Who, but in so many other projects that you have. And so I thought that might be one of the wonderful things that we might be able to explore during this particular conversation. Also, if there's anyone in the room who would like to go ahead and get a question in as well, feel free to go ahead and make your way to the microphone that's in the center aisle, and I will do my best to try and make sure that we work through as many of those as well so we can make this a collaborative process. So, by the time...
You know what's coming.
Warn me what's coming so that I know if I should step back out of the way. So I thought we'd start with this project and then we can kind of move on to some of the collaborations that you might have had before. So as you were going, hey, here's the process. We know that, Sylvester, you're coming into this new adventure for you and you're going, all right, I'm building this character, and part of this character's process is collaborating with these companions. And so did you have like an idea of how you were going to use your previous collaborative acting experience to work with your companions as our doctor?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that we British actors are blessed that we do a lot of our work in the theatre, and the theatre is a very collaborative kind of journey that we all go on. And I know that in film, or in television, I presume as well, you don't actually have to have the other actor in the room necessarily. And I noticed that in those days, American actors were always brilliant film actors, and the reason for that was that they didn't, in Los Angeles they had very little theatre. The theatre was all in New York or Chicago, and maybe this great town as well has got good theatre. But so therefore they learned a different way of having a relationship more with the camera than the other actor, whereas we Brits had to have that relationship. So it made it easy, I think, yeah.
So did you have to figure out a way to adapt so that it also played to the camera, or is just the concept of the way that the show, at least when you were all participating in it, was it a lot more that historical, as you said, kind of British methodology? So react to one another, or make it bolder because you have to react to the camera?
Television in its way is a much more intimate genre, and I think when you've got a two-handed scene, it's instinctive to, it's great. Acting is a group sport, so I don't think you particularly change your methodology, if you like to put it that way, working with one people or five people, because acting is essentially listening, and I think if you do that generally, the camera would pick it up anyway. Do you think?
Yeah.
So how do you help, and I know all of you have also done some work behind the camera as directors. So how do you help evoke that from other actors and go, what you just said?
Actors are instinctive. I mean, they're kind of herd animals, you know. Those of us who've been around a long time, you know, you can see somebody work with somebody for a few weeks in the theatre, see them 10 years later, and you just pick it up as you.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I'm sure.
It is, yes, no, you have that relationship with people, you know, and it happens a lot. And for years you haven't seen them, and then suddenly...
It's a shorthand.
Yeah.
I mean, Sophie, you know, you've done lots of theatre, and, you know, we all work in companies, and you find the people you like and the people you go, I never want to work with that person again.
Yeah, well, Sophie and I mean, you know, we 30-odd years ago, we worked together, and then we recently got back together and worked together, and it was as if those 30-odd years never existed. I mean, partly because of Big Finish, but it was a kind of a different acting in a different way, and sometimes we're not even in the same room at the same time. So, you know, it is very strange that it clicks, you know.
Right. So do
I also...
Go ahead, Sophie, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I hadn't done any TV before I was cast in Doctor Who. I'd done entirely theatre, and a lot of that was collaborative children's theatre, so ensemble work and working in the back row of the chorus as well in musicals and things like that. So you do learn. You have to work together because otherwise you have a miserable time. I think actors who don't get on with people are bonkers because they're only going to have a bad time. Anyway, I remember coming into Doctor Who, and it was so it's the lead actor sets the tone, I think, in a lot of cases, and Sylvester certainly set the tone for everybody working together. And I remember you saying, Sylv, you know, you wanted everybody to just come and join the party and have a good time as well, because hadn't you been in stuff where that hadn't been the case?
Yeah, I mean, because a lot of the times when you go to a company that are doing, you know, kind of a soap or a long-running thing, and they all know each other, they all keep together at one end of the rehearsal room, and guests are left to kind of just wander around and wonder what to do. It can be rather lonely and kind of a bit scary, whereas I decided that as soon as anyone came here, they became part of the family, part of the fun. And we had, I mean, there was that German actor, I've forgotten his name.
Oh, Anton Diffring.
Anton Diffring. Now, he lived down in south of France, and he came and did it. The reason why I accepted the job was it was tennis at Wimbledon, and that's why he did the job. He didn't care. And of course, and he arrived grumpy, and he said, "Oh, in fact, I'm playing another German fascist," you know, because that's what he played. And he was kind of miserable, but by the end of it, he wasn't miserable.
He had a great time.
Yeah, he had a good time. He enjoyed it.
Can I just add to that, as somebody who was a guest on Doctor Who with you two as the lead, it's absolutely right. All the tone comes from the top and the lead actors, and it was a party all the way through, and it doesn't always happen, and that's what made certainly this period of Doctor Who fun for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And when we were talking, we had an opportunity with our other guest of honor, John Davey, talking about the really having to lean on one another because the crew or the director might be busy doing something else. And so then as the talent going, how are we going to play this out? How are we going to work out? How are we going to, what's our vision for this scene?
We just sit and gossip.
Yes, that's very true.
So you're saying only the Cybermen are over there planning stuff. The rest of you are like, oh man, did you see what they had for lunch?
No,
Pretty much, yeah.
No, honestly, some of the times, I mean, the very first one I did was, it had Benedict Cumberbatch's mother. Wanda. And there was another actor, and they were terribly posh. She's terribly posh, and he was terribly posh actor, one of those two posh. And they knew each other for playing posh parts throughout their career. And every time we were rehearsing or doing something, and it was their chance, we couldn't find them. They were off in the corner just gossiping about all the time. Nothing that no one was interested in. I mean, oh gosh, yes, come on, love, and then they go on and
I think
be wonderfully posh on screen.
they knew what they were doing.
Yeah. I'd say she brought Benedict to the set. He was this 15-year-old boy. And I thought, oh, no chance for him, poor bugger.
Did he give off
And
Posh
then
when he was
do you
15?
remember? Do you remember then when we worked with him on Big Finish?
Yeah.
We were doing a story with Benedict,
Yeah.
and you were talking to him about, and he was saying, "Oh yes, I've met you before," and this was this was before he was very well known. He was a jobbing actor, and he was great, and he did the Big Finish, and then he said, "I'm terribly sorry, I have to go early. It's very rude, I know, but I've got this audition with Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss." And we said, "Oh, that's great. Well, they'll love you. You know, they're lovely. We know them." He said, "What's it for?" He said, "Oh, it's something rather strange sounding. It's a sort of modern version of Sherlock Holmes with a sort of."
I knew
And we
it
all
wouldn't
talked
run.
about. We thought, yeah, exactly. And we practically waved him off in
poor
the cab.
fella.
And the
No
next thing we
chance.
knew, you know, yeah.
And they're like, and now.
And then he ended up as a dragon, and I'm in The Hobbit, you know, and he ended up in The Hobbit as well.
If you have a question, go ahead and step on up.
All right, okay. Shall I go and do my stick?
So obviously there's, years and years of marvelous actors and a huge cast.
Sorry to interrupt, but just look at that cosplay, everybody. Hurrah.
My voice is getting tired. There are so many of them all dressed up as you, and I'm going, "Ace!" to that one, and "Ace!" to that one. Please, could you not dress up as someone else? My throat. Think of my throat.
Well, I'm very sorry, but I hastily threw this one together last year for Sophie's arrival and just had to wear it again.
No.
But I'm wondering, out of the entire Doctor Who family cast, is there anyone who you haven't collaborated with as an actor who you'd love to in the future? Or is there any character who your character would love? Obviously, if you're going to craft the perfect TARDIS team, it's you three, obviously.
Well
But-
played.
Smooth talking person, you. Yeah, you're definitely an ace.
But you as an actor or your character, is there anybody another actor you would take to collaborate with, or a character who your character would love to steal onto Team TARDIS for a bit?
Me.
It's a difficult one, really. I mean,
Everybody and his mother has been in Doctor Who, so it's kind of hard to say.
You can steal from other TARDI. If like who was in another team and you can put them on yours. I think I understand where that
Louise
question.
Jameson.
There we go. Yeah.
I mean, I did actually get to work with her. It was a dreadful, dreadful thing we did. It was for some charity, and it was a tie-up between EastEnders and Doctor Who. Do you remember that, Sophie?
We just talked
you
about
did.
that yesterday, and we kind of were like, we said it was
Terrible.
terrible. They had so much to get done in that. That's what we're saying. It's like there's no way they got all of it done. Yeah.
It was really terrible, whatever.
Do you know now that it's like a watch along? It's so camp. Everybody knows the line.
They do.
It's a bit like the Rocky Horror Show version. The Rocky Horror Show of Doctor Who.
really?
That was brought up yesterday because we had a panel about Curse for the Fatal Death, and then talking about other mashups and charity things like that. So that's why we talked about that EastEnder thing. So we still like you, Sylvester. It's okay. It wasn't your fault. So we don't hold it against you at all.
No, please don't hold it against me. Don't even show me it. But there was one wonderful thing about it. The reason why I brought it up was that I was working with Louise. There was the technical way. They wanted to make it three-dimensional, and the Germans had invented this camera, and the camera was a big, heavy camera, but it had to move all the time to give you the impression of three-dimension. And so it also had a big, long wire, kind of, attached, so it needed to feed the information down the line. So Louise and I, you're going to be Louise. We were standing. Sophie loves playing this part, but I mean Louise.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, so you're there, Louise. Now you face me because this is how we were doing it, right? And we're doing the scene, and the camera was going around as three-dimensional, had to keep moving, and as it moved, the wire started to wind round us, and so this is what happened, and we ended up like this. And this is, I thought, aren't I lucky, so close to Louise? And aren't I lucky, so close to you?
Hey, Sylvester.
Yeah?
Talking of Louise, have you seen the trailer for the...
Oh,
that
yes,
she's
she
in?
looks amazing.
Sorry, I've done...
It-
For what?
Brilliant.
The trailer for what?
She's for the box set, the next Tom Baker box set.
All right, no.
And, look it up on YouTube.
Yeah.
She's fantastic.
Yeah.
It made me cry. She's so good.
Yeah,
We'll
she-
show it to you backstage. It is fabulous. So
Oh, right. Oh,
yeah,
great.
you're in the
Okay.
right place. So thank you for bringing that up, Sophie. While we were talking about, before we go back to the audience, while we were talking about, one of the things that was so amazing to me when I was watching you as the doctor was the physicality that you brought to the role, and that was something that you were so known for before. And so when you and I were chatting yesterday about something else, you were talking about how you were able to maintain that as the character because it was something that you were known for, even though there's been times before when people were like, yeah, you used to do that, don't do that here. And so how were you able to go, well, this is what I do, let me do what I do in this role and it'll be even better?
Well, because nobody said no to us, really. When we arrived, John Nathan Turner, the producer, he by then really wanted to be producer of the EastEnders or something, or Coronation Street, something like that. But he did support us in every way, except, but the one thing he didn't do was even get in our way. Okay. And so he gave us the key to the TARDIS, myself and Andrew Cartmel, and said, get on with it, and we did. And my ambition was, when I first got the role, I brought my comedy tricks with me because that's what I thought they wanted, because no one said they didn't. And I've learned since that John Nathan Turner did want me to do those comedy falls and stuff like that. But then I discovered I'd been handed one of the great TV roles and you could do anything with it. And so that was my journey, along with Andrew, to go down a darker, more interesting place. But at the same time, I wanted to keep juggling the comedy, the visual, the verbal, along with the drama, the anger, the loneliness, and all those things. And it was just juggling all those balls. And no one said, don't do it. So that's how I managed to do it.
We've talked about this amongst ourselves. I think that's part of the reason why we loved it and thought it was so fabulous, is because it was so layered. And so to go, well, we know he can do all this stuff, and so even watching you not only as an actor but as that character, I think it made it even more impactful when you did do something that was darker or had more of that turn. Because we're going, well, isn't this the guy that was juggling a minute ago, or was giving me this pithy phrase, or was saying something like that?
I was playing the spoon.
Exactly. You're like, this is my friend.
Not
this
the
is my
spoon.
protector. Oh, you missed it. We did live spoons on Friday night. It was glorious. Yeah, live spoons.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
He tried to do like spoon lessons. It went mostly well. I think that the 4 contestants, it's a skill set now that they're going to be able to use in their real life, right? I see that. I think that they're all going to add it to their resumes now and say, now am I semi-professional percussionist thanks to Sylvester McCoy. So that was fabulous.
Yes, Professor McCoy of the spoons there.
And I do think, one thing, and if there's anybody in the room that wants to help us out with this, Sylvester and I are also talking about this. One of the things that imprinted on me most when I first watched you as the doctors, that there was one, back to the physicality, there was a scene, and I think somebody helped me out last night and told me what episode it was, but it was one where you used that signature thing that you do where you like crawled down their back, through their legs, up through the front of them and did all that stuff. And I remember going, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I wish I knew how to do that. And just that was part of the reason I'm like, this is my new doctor. That was the episode. So I think my friend Mike Rogers suggested, we decided it was Dragonfire Episode 2. So, yeah, does that sound right? Yes. So we think it's Dragonfire Episode 2.
All
yes.
right.
And that was one of those moments for me that I was like, this is the guy. So thank you for bringing that. So, and Mike, thank you for being the Rolodex that my brain doesn't do.
That was the bit which followed on from the classic cliffhanger, wasn't it?
All right,
The cliffhanger, to put the record straight, was written into the script, and it all made sense because it says the Doctor is going along this path, and there's a rock fall, and the Doctor can't get over the rock fall, so that's why he climbs over the cliff. But in the excitement of having a cliffhanger as a cliffhanger, and Sylvester hanging off a cliff on his umbrella, somebody forgot the story, and so they didn't put the rockfall in the way. So all of a sudden, Sylvester kind of heads off over the cliff, and you think, what?
Well, yes, I mean, I came up with the idea of doing the actual hanging on the cliffhanger, and then they wrote it into the script, later. But because I loved the idea of having a cliffhanger. But it turned out it had no meaning whatsoever, really. But it was nice hanging around. Sorry.
No, never sorry. I appreciate it. Yes, in the audience.
Hi, a couple of quick questions. Could you maybe talk about the first time the three of you worked together for Big Finish on Shadow of the Scourge? And then also, recently there was the Tales from the TARDIS, the memory TARDIS scene that Sylvester and Sophie, you shot. It was kind of like a wraparound segment, and curious if you could share some stories from that, and if potentially there might be more in the future.
Thank you.
I mean,
I can chip in with
Yes.
the Big Finish. I mean, obviously
you directed me, though, didn't you?
No. I was in it. Bernice's first appearance with you. It was at a cross.
No, but you did direct me in Big Finish.
I did. That was in. Oh,
She doesn't even remember. That must have been very impressed.
No. I'm trying.
You
Oh,
did.
it was Thousand Tiny Wings. That's what
Yeah.
it was. Yeah. Sorry, that was kind of way after. But when I first appeared as Bernice in Shadow, the Scourge that Matt said, it was funny because obviously I'd been playing Bernice for a year and a bit, and there was never any suggestion that we were going to do a crossover or whether we were allowed to do a crossover with the New Adventures and whether it was a right decision or whatever, Anyway, as it turned out, Paul Cornell wrote Shadow the Scourge, and of course Paul Cornell created Bernice Summerfield. Obviously, I knew Sophie and Sylv, we'd worked together on Survival, and I was very aware they're a very tight dynamic as characters and as actors. And when you have a third sort of interloper, I was thinking, how's this going to work? I mean, I knew the character I was playing, and I felt a little guilty because Paul had really written up Bernice quite considerably, and I thought they're going to sit there and go, who is this person? But as I touched on earlier, they're so lovely and so welcoming that actually I think also that the strength of the character of Bernice seemed to fit into that dynamic better than I was expecting, and I just hope I didn't feel like I was treading on anybody's toes, but
It was great. It was just more time in the green room gossiping.
Yeah,
you see, we're back to that again.
exactly.
The
Yeah.
commitment to our art, and there is there's a wonderful scene where Bernice is inside the Doctor's brain, and she's picking through all the bits and dropping things off the side, like.
That's why I've got a headache.
Sorry about that. Picked out.
When they say, what was it like working with her? That's if she gives me a headache.
But I loved it, and the fact, obviously, we did Love and War eventually, the adaptation of the novel where Bernice was originally introduced, and then obviously when we started off the New Adventures of Bernice Summerfield box sets,
Right.
we were back together again for that.
Okay.
So we dip in and out.
I think the characters go really well together. I think Ace and Benny have this sort of respect for each other, don't they?
A disrespectful respect, if that makes sense. I mean,
absolutely.
What's so good is they're not carbon copies of each other. And
Right.
think
I mean,
that's
it's a very
important.
disparate personality type. That,
Completely,
yeah, but you need them both. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you did your extra bit. I've been watching little Tales of the TARDIS. They're great.
All right.
That's exciting.
Oh, yes, that's right, Tales of the TARDIS. I mean, that was flung together at the last minute, wasn't it, Sophie?
Well, it was funny because I had actually had a FaceTime with Russell And I said, which I know actors don't do, I said, Russell, I know that you're not meant to do this, but do you think there's any future for Ace? And he said, well, never say never, he said, but, you know, and he said, wouldn't it be wonderful if in 2 years' time, say, Wendy Padbury appeared on our screens? I thought, not Wendy Padbury, what about me? Anyway, with the greatest respect to Wendy, of course, who I absolutely adore. Anyway, so we had a lovely chat, and that was it. And I thought, oh, well, I'll get on with my life. Literally 3 days later, this was at the end of August, my agent rang and said, oh, Andy Pryor, the casting director's got an availability check for you again. And I thought, ooh, what's this all about? And Russell texted me and said, I'm so sorry, I couldn't say anything. I was having to bite my tongue. But so what had happened was they hadn't got the funding through by late August, that would have been. And they couldn't do anything until they'd got that funding in place. But then they got it all together in a matter of weeks. It was incredible what they did.
Is it Scott who directed it?
Yeah.
Yes. Scott Hancock was given his first producing job, actually. He produced it. And a lovely guy called Jason, who, again, had done little bits and bobs on other things. So Russell just gave them that to do completely. And it was lovely, really good crew, lovely people. So we had a great time, didn't we, Sylv?
Yeah, we did, actually. It was good fun. And somehow we managed to get the spoons in it.
Yeah. Wonder how.
Yeah,
the set was extraordinary, wasn't it? Because it was small for a set, but it was a bit like an egg. And you walked up some stairs, and inside this egg is it's every Doctor Who fan's dream. It's from down the ages, props and everything. And I mean, the attention to detail was incredible. I spotted a student union card from Bill Potts, you know, just propped up in a little corner, and an array of TARDIS keys and all sorts of little bits and bobs, River Song's shoes, everything was in there. And we were doing the bit with the chess, weren't we, Sylv? And we were sort of saying, well, how do we know how to do it? Anyway, there was somebody on the crew, obviously, who just came up and said, well, you did this and this, and then you did this and this and this. And the crew knew exactly all the history of Doctor Who as well. It was a very loved part of it was just lovely, because they were all enjoying it just as much as we were as well.
I mean, when I first did Doctor Who, that was the thing that really impressed me, was all the crew that worked at it loved Doctor Who, and they volunteered to do Doctor Who, and that was just so wonderful, really. Except for the pyrotechnic boys, they just kept trying to blow up Doctor Who. But that's another story. They wanted Sophie all to themselves.
Like, we don't need a hero. We got it. So.
We got Sophie. You know?
Yeah.
So, Sophie, I have two questions. First, last year you mentioned you had a hard time getting into the BBC Cardiff because they didn't know who you were for Power of the Doctor.
Oh, yeah.
Was it easier this time? Did they know who you were this time?
It was great, because it was a lot of the same team who've been doing the Power of the Doctor. And also there wasn't the BBC, because it's made at Bad Wolf Studios, which are these amazing studios in Cardiff. And so, yeah, there was no... well, there was security, obviously, but, you know, you get greeted by the second AD, who takes you to makeup, who takes you to costume. So, yeah, there wasn't an officious little man on the front door.
I still remember that. I still remember the voice in my head from last year. And my second question is, did you guys know that David Tennant was going to be as famous as he was going to be when you worked with him on Cold Dits?
No.
I met him at one of the Big Finish parties years back, and he was a big Doctor Who fan.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, he was.
And I think, was it Jason who knew him anyway? And very, very engaging and chatty and all that. And he was a good actor. He was a working actor. It wasn't as if he was a complete unknown. But in terms of the direction he's gone, he knows what he's doing.
I love it when you talk about people like David Tennant and Benedict Cumberbatch, and you're like, yeah, I didn't see it. You know, kind of thing. You're just kind of like, they turned out good. It worked out, but they were just working like everybody else.
Yeah, no, they were. Yeah, they were. Because he played a Nazi, didn't he, Sophie and Howard?
Yeah, he played a nasty Nazi.
Yeah.
He had to say something like, Ace, remove your clothes, which is, quite nice thinking back about it. David Tennant asking me to remove my clothes. But anyway, he walked in. I do remember him having a certain presence. And I do think that, I don't know if you agree with this, you two, that there is a certain something about certain actors that is kind of something kind of slightly indefinable. But you look at them, you want to watch them, and you want to listen to them.
I touched on that with a particular person in mind as a subject a couple of days ago because, my late partner had that. And, there is something, and they don't know how they do it. You can't. It's just there. It's in them. It's not studied.
Right.
It's not something you can train for. It's just there.
That sparkles sometimes.
It's charisma. It's just, they walk onto you can watch them on screen and you can't, they might be standing in the background. I used to do a tiny bit of scouting for people, for agents at drama schools and things like that. And you always used to get, students going, I never get the lead part. I never get them. And you can go to a show and see somebody with 2 lines walk across the back of the stage and you go, them. Right. And there is nothing you can really define about that. It's extraordinary.
So before we get back to the audience, I think my friend Natasha in the back, do we have somebody that was on our virtual that might have a question?
We do. This question comes from Liz.
Hi, Liz. Thanks for watching.
Hello, Liz.
Liz is in Australia, everybody.
Oh, I've been chatting to her earlier.
What do you think is in store for the future for the Doctor and Ace?
Not a big question at all, Liz. Thanks.
No idea, really. It's difficult, really.
We don't know. We're always the last people to hear. Well, I'm the last person, and you're usually the one who tells me stuff, Sylvester.
Oh, really? I thought it was the other way around. Yeah. I mean, who knows? I mean, the problem is we don't have, we don't see the future. So it's a difficult one to answer, Liz. I can't answer that, really. Hopefully, but there might be something. I mean, the thing is that one gets the impression that Russell's brought the 20th century doctors back in order to reintroduce them to a new audience as they are now, so that maybe in the future he might pop them into some story or other. That's our dream. Whether or not that will happen, we don't know, but that is one kind of future that I'm sure Sophie and I would love to see happen.
And I appreciate you sharing that because, as you said, Sophie, you started that story when you were talking about Russell, when you go, I know as an actor I'm not supposed to do this, but you did it anyway, just similar to what Sylvester just shared about what that dream was. Do you have a particular dream for what the characters would do and move forward? If we don't know for sure, since we don't have a crystal ball, if you could create it and we can help you manifest it, what would you pick?
I don't know, really, because as an actor, you never have control over your material. So, we're not the ones who are in charge of being that creative. I'll do anything, really. And that's what you do as an actor, don't you? You just, you get your script and you go, oh, that's nice, or, oh, I wish that was a bit different. But, you don't, so that's part of the being an actor, is that you morph into any situation, any character, any story that comes your way, and you make the best of it, and you fall in love with that character, no matter who it is, and you make it as real as you possibly can for the audience.
And speaking of the audience, we want to go to the mic in the center of the room.
Thank you. Sylvester addressed yesterday doing the human embalm routines early in his career, and Sophie had talked about some children's rep. I was curious if you could touch on some of the more British traditions in theater that we don't get a lot of in America.
I mean, I suppose the obvious one is pantomime.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of panto, but not the big. There's a kind of difference between the big commercial pantomimes that you get at the big theatres around the country, who generally have sort of pop stars and celebrities and local
And
DJs.
Sylvester McCoy.
You get the occasional proper actor.
No, in fact, I mean, I did one at pantomime with Peter Davidson twice, funnily enough, a long time ago.
Yeah, I did a lot of regional theatre pantomimes, which, in a sense, had a lot more of the old traditions. You get people. There's a wonderful actor called Chris Harris. You must have got across Chris, who did the panto. He played Dame, but he played it like a man. He wasn't like a drag artist. He was like Old Mother Riley. If you know.
And I'm going to ask you to define that. I think there might be a few people in the air who don't. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Who aren't quite. Can you translate it to us who don't know what that means for a genre?
The world of pantomime, I mean, it comes out of, I suppose, commedia dell'arte and things like that, but it's an upside-down world, so the men play the women play the men, although things have changed. I mean, I played Principal Boy 4 times, and now you get boys playing the boys, but you still get the men playing the dames. I'm not going to say anything, but there's so much work around for us. But actually, there's a sort of shorthand with the audience. You have this wonderful breaking of the fourth wall, and there are, you've heard the things like "behind you" and "oh no it isn't" and "oh yes it is." It's a wonderful bonkers, strange. A lot of them are based off old, I was going to say Grimm's fairy tales, but Cinderella. We've got Robin Hood. We've got Jack and the Beanstalk. Yes, Sylv.
Well, no, it's in the ancient days before television and film. There was a thing called rep, and each town had their own theatre, and for a year there would be a group of actors who would come and do plays throughout that year. And so at the end of the year, the pantomime was a party, in a sense.
Absolutely.
And so of course, in those days too, you pretended to play one particular part. You were a matinee idol, you were the comedy, you were the the kind of things. So when the matinee idol, he would end up being the villain in the piece. Then the comedy would most likely, butch comedy guy would dress up as a woman, and that you never forgot. It was a bloke. It wasn't him planning to be. And so that became the party. And also your audience knew you because of the year. And our audiences in Britain know what their role is in it. They're not there just to sit and watch. They're there to be part of it.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is that people have tried desperately to import the pantomime to America and Canada. I think they vaguely get it in Canada because there's still some Brits there that, grew up with it. Yeah. But it never works. It's a very, very British mad thing.
And the nice thing is that people who've done panto there can bring a joke that they think works really well. And there's a sort of progression of experience. People who've done a lot of pantomimes going, can we do that gag there?
Right.
In say Aladdin, you've got you get the wicked king or whatever, and everybody goes salam, 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 and then it turns out not to be the person they think, and they say full salam, full salam. This is the kind of
terrible gag.
This is the kind of level we're talking about.
Is that part of it though? Is that because of a lot of the way that we structure things here with our products in America, you don't have an opportunity to get to know somebody as a key character, so when you turn it on its ear, we don't really get the joke because we didn't really have a chance to bond with them as whatever that primary character was?
I think there's an element of that. I think also that the tradition of panto, whether it be, rep companies now are almost a thing of the past in the UK. Most of the reps just don't work like that anymore. You don't stay with a company for a year anymore. All of that's pretty much gone. But I think the actual historical background of pantomime we're all obsessed with history in the UK, and I think it's just part of that performance history. We also had a very big tradition of music hall, and I think that injects into it, and it's just something that's never gone away. Also, it's incredibly popular, and most theatres stay afloat on what they make during the panto season.
And it also introduces children to theatre.
Which is why it's got to be
incredibly
good.
important, and that's why theatre manages to carry on and with all the other kind of means of communication that there are now that weren't in those days gone by. Yeah.
It's hard work.
There are some
as well.
great comedy routines as well, aren't
Yeah.
there?
The
There's
slosh
Stock
scene.
in Trade, and there's usually two comic characters. It's a bit like a sort of, I guess, it's almost like Laurel and Hardy, Abbott and
Yeah,
Costello,
it
that
is.
kind of
Slapstick.
the slapstick.
Yeah.
There's some very famous routines that everybody knew, and you'd say, oh, should we do the bucket routine in this one, or
Yeah.
should we do
Yeah, you bring
the
it with
pie
you.
routine in this one, or should we do the, and they're very, very set pieces within the
absolutely.
panto, and it doesn't forward the story or anything. You just get these little kind of
There's a thing called the slosh
routines.
scene where you suddenly get somebody rolling out a big bit of plastic and they're putting up wallpaper. It's basically Laurel and Hardy putting up wallpaper and getting slosh all over themselves and, just disgusting. And then you get the one where there's something following you and you get, children go completely bananas. I did a laddie years ago, and there's a point where you're behind this gauze, you've gone into the cave, you found the lamp. And I was in Harrogate, and you pick the lamp up. You've got to be very, very careful about how much permission you give the audience, because they'll just go bananas for most of it. And you pick up the lamp, and all I could hear, and I don't know whether you appreciate the accent on this, but I say, I wonder what I should do with this. And you get, rob it! And it was so loud, my ears rattled. And it went on and on. Rob it! And the thing is, the control that you have over these kids is extraordinary, because you can just go, sorry? It's actually really enjoyable when you get like that.
It's also, in a way, it's a kind of, going back to original time, it's a mixture of, there's always rhyming in it. That's kind of a bow to Shakespeare. There's dance in it. There's straight stuff.
Participation, there's the song sheet at the end where everybody
it's
has
kind
to
of
sing.
using all the forms of theatre and mixing them all up in a big Christmas pot and making this great Christmas pudding called pantomime.
Yeah, it's great.
And in the room.
Good morning, everyone, and afternoon, Sophie. With the different forms of media that you've all worked in, doing audio plays, working in theater, in front of the camera for television, and then even films, which do each of you feel you prefer the most? And even outside of that, what do you feel the most satisfaction from when you're finished?
I just like work.
all of it.
Oh yeah, it's not. People ask that question all the time, and it's a weird question because we enjoy all of it. It's doing theatre is like painting with a big broad brush, because you've got to get to the back of the wall. You're going to be seen by everyone. Doing film is like painting with a little Japanese, brush. It's all internal and thing. So it's just the means of doing it is different, but you're acting, and and doing radio, audio is
halfway
a joy.
between both,
I love doing audio, and you do too, and I'm sure Sophie does too. We love doing audio, but it's acting really.
I think the
Can't
difference.
pick one.
I don't know how Sophie feels about this, but the difference from my point of view is that both radio and stage, regardless of the rehearsal period in theatre, is quite a quick medium. You get an immediate response from the audience. You have a different relationship because you are playing to the audience in theatre. And radio, in terms of performance for the actors, is very quick. Especially with digital photography. You can get an hour play done in a day, Whereas television, on the whole, depending on whether you're doing what I call hit and run television, like Doctors and things like that, it's a lot of waiting around film and television.
Well, regarding what you were saying about you like the work, if we tie that into what you said about pantomime and being able to play all those different characters at the end of that, is that how you three as performers have been able to whether seasonality or whether being able to show that you're versatile and I can go from a radio play to on screen to on stage? Do you think that that's been of value to you?
It
being able to do
confuses
that?
casting directors.
Does it?
No end.
Okay, now why do you think that is?
Mixed
Now-
bag,
okay.
yeah. It's very mixed because, I remember the days, I think it's better now nowadays, people can understand that you can actually sing and act and dance and do whatever. But I remember back when I was doing Doctor Who, I was also doing children's TV presenting, and then I was also doing singing, and people would say, well, what are you? Are you a singer? Are you an actor? Are you a presenter? Because you could only be one thing in those days. Yeah. And I think that's why, looking back, I haven't had so many dramatic roles, say on TV, because I got pigeonholed as more as a presenter, and I got a lot of work presenting, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Right.
But because people see you as something very narrow. I think now it's opening up a bit, and people do actually recognise that you can do lots of things.
I don't know whether I'm generalising, but it seemed to happen more in the UK than in America. You could be a sort of, triple threat. You could do lots of different... No, really?
No.
But it's certainly from our perception, because obviously, I think all of us have worked in very different genre. But then, in order to keep myself off the street, I became a photographer. And then, because people have to like what I was doing, suddenly go, oh, well, you're a photographer now, are you? And
they seem to let you can do doing stage and on camera, not necessarily, but if you do voice acting, that translates to all of them.
Well, you'd hope so, but it's they flick through your CV.
No, we're saying here in America.
True.
I'm just talking for America. We'll let you do that.
But I don't know how it is with Sophie. And so, they flick through your CV. I mean, even when you were up for television, they kind of go, oh, that stage, I'm not interested in that. Oh, radio, that, no. What have you done on TV? And you think, well, surely if you see a consistency of work, there must be something in there that will say, employ this person. But they do panic a bit. I don't know, maybe
I was kind of lucky, really. Because as described by Sophie and yourself, that's what it was like. But I did children's television for years, and lots, carried on doing lots of children's television, but somehow managed at the same time to do lots of theatre at the same time. And so I had two careers going along all at the same time. And I think that allowed me to move up and away from being, typecast or stuck in a box. I did presenting as well, and I did, comedy stuff and children's stuff.
But every genre seems to see you differently. I mean, on stage, I don't think I've done in 40 years any more than about 4 modern dress productions. Okay. I cannot get arrested for them on television, where I'm always in a suit or in a uniform, because it always represents the first thing you do. That is what you do. Okay. My first television was, playing a paramedic. So, that's what you do. Mm-hmm. And you go, well, look at the CV. But then they don't. They don't. It's what's in front of them. Which is why I love radio, because it doesn't matter what you look like.
I'm 6 feet tall.
I know.
And the sets don't shake.
All right, Natasha, I know we have another question from our virtual.
All right, there's a couple questions on there, but I don't think we'll be able to get to them all given the time that's left. So this one is, speaking of kids shows, what about having Ace in some sort of unit spin-off, like kids show, focused on LGBT, such as with our new trans Rose Noble? Thoughts on spin-offs?
Yes, please. Somebody just go away and write that, would you?
We got a lot of people in the room. Thank you, Natasha. All right, in the room as well, if you want to go ahead and step. Are you doing something, Scott, with the mic?
Sylv will be down in 2 seconds if you do much.
Have you a problem? Should I go?
Got it. No, Sylvester, I'll go. I'll go.
No.
This
is my shtick. This is my shtick.
This is it. He's done. And
all right, here we go now. We're off
lost him forever now.
Where are you? Put your hand up.
Scott, you've let one battery die. Scott's one of our sounds guys. He's fantastic.
Hello, tall person. That's better. Look down.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
I have a question for the panel.
Yes.
How much of between the TV show and the Big Finish productions is improv? And if there were any improvs that you felt particularly that you really enjoyed, that you're very proud of?
Right.
Well, I mean, the difference between radio doesn't really allow its time for improvisation because you've got such a limited time to edit. But I'm sure Sylvester will be able to embellish on television.
Well, I know I did. I used to annoy the directors, as Sophie will tell you, because what happened was that we'd rehearse in the studio, and then they'd all be fixed, and then we go to the location, and the location had other things, and so I stopped playing with them, and they got very angry with me because I'd be improvising. But we both improvised a lot, I think, during Doctor Who, didn't we? Sophie?
Yeah, we did. Well, we had the luxury of rehearsals. So
Yeah.
if something didn't work, we could change it.
Yeah.
And now, there is always a certain amount of improvisation anyway, because even now, nowadays you get onto a set and you don't have that rehearsal time. But you're thinking of things that you can do, and what would your character do here, and what would you? So there is a certain amount of improvisation. But in terms of the script, by the time we came to the studio, it should have been fixed. But then, as Sylvester says, sometimes we did alter.
Well, there were
stuff.
other things to play with, and then that's what we did.
Oh
really.
yeah, do you remember the bit in Silver Nemesis, Sylvester, when we went down to the basement and I was the first to wear a fez, and then you wore the fez, and then we had all those props to play with. There was a bear, a big stuffed bear. Do you remember that as well?
Oh, we improvised
And
around
so-
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so you've
Yeah.
got to play with things like that, haven't you?
Yeah, because they didn't have them in the rehearsal studio, so we just kind of. And in fact, yes, because there was also Silver Nemesis as well, where we went into the house and there was a fez and a mop. And I picked it up and danced with the mop wearing the fez. And then all those years later, Matt Smith ends up with a mop and a thing. So
I love that.
So that was part of a journey.
I think I'd like this young lady.
Hello again.
Hi.
You've got your question.
Yeah, I've got a question for Sophie. You got to beat up a Dalek. Do you have any tips?
Yes.
Twice.
Yeah.
I beat up that Dalek.
So do you
I
have
just
any
say,
tips for me?
yeah,
Tips.
just give it a good old whack.
And make sure there's no one inside it.
True.
Otherwise, they'd be very unhappy. Grace.
Yeah,
great
what you
question.
also have to do is have the doctor to supercharge your baseball bat with some amazing energy from the hand of Omega. That helps.
Yeah. So have you got a hand of Omega at home? Maybe you should go online and get one. Of course, the most important thing is, have you got a baseball bat?
No.
Well, how can you beat up a Dalek without a baseball bat? My suggestion is get a baseball bat.
That's probably a good idea if I want to beat up Daleks, so.
Yeah, sure it is. Thank you. What's your name again?
Beatrice?
Beatrice.
Ah, Beatrice.
I met Beatrice. Beatrice knows a lot.
Beatrice is great.
Great
Beatrice
name.
Thank you for your
Dad.
question, Beatrice.
Beatrice's dad, you need to pick up a baseball bat on the way home.
Yeah, we're not looking at you in any. When's your birthday?
Another British tradition. Please explain ferret legging.
All right, ferret legging. Well, that's a very. When I first started doing a show called An Evening with Sylvester McCoy, the Human Bomb, we started doing stunts. And Ken Campbell, who was the genius behind all this madness, he decided that we should actually invent our own stunt. I used to do a bed of nails, get bricks broken on my chest, set light to my head, blow fire, escape from mailbags, and various other already established stunts. So we wanted to invent our own. Now, Ken kept ferrets. And he'd heard a story about Barman in Stoke-on-Trent had been bet 10 shillings he couldn't put a ferret down his trousers. And he put it down his trousers and he lost the 10 shillings. I'm not sure what else he lost, but anyway. But that was in Ken's mind, so we created this stunt. And so we were doing this stunt, and there was a secret pocket in my trousers, and I was as safe as houses, and my voice is still quite deep, as you can hear. So, and I had 2 sons afterwards, so there was no problem. No problem with that. But we were doing this show. You can see it. It's on a thing called Arena on YouTube. A documentary following us around Kirby, which was a real down-heel town near Liverpool. Now, Liverpool Arts had funded us to go into Kirby to entertain the people for a week, and we did. Also, we were followed around by a newspaper, a Sunday newspaper, and the newspaper at the end of the time went, "This might be fun, but is it art?" That was the attack on us, because Liverpool Arts were wasting their money kind of, giving to us to go and entertain people, working class people. I mean, why should they be entertained? That was the kind of stuff. So described us putting ferrets down our trousers. Then overnight, all over Britain, people started sticking ferrets down their trousers. And it became as if it was part of, a tradition from 1820 or 1703. And there were people on the television with 25 ferrets down their trousers. I mean, they're most like they ate their legs and things like that. So and they called, we ended up in the Guinness Book of Records, I think, as ferret legging. I didn't like that, ferret legging. I mean, it's ferret down your trousers.
Ferret down your trousers.
The world record. That was what I was trying to break every night and twice on Saturdays.
Well, friends here at Console Room, our time has flown by, and so please, a round of applause for Sophie Aldred, Lisa Bowerman, and of course, Sylvester McCoy.
Thank you.
I encourage all of you, please, to enjoy the rest of the festivities. We're going to be able to see Sylvester back here. We're going to be able to see a variety of activities that are going on. And also, one thing that I do like to remind you, we are so glad that you joined us this year. I also want to remind you that if you were not aware, this is a nonprofit. So if you are in a position to support Console Room, please go to the website and make a donation as we move forward into 2024 and hopefully 2025 and beyond. So,
bye-bye, Sophie.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Sophie.
Enjoy all of your panels, everybody. I'm Miss Shannan.
Hi.
For those in the room, there is a tea party happening in Consuite right now with some of our featured guests from the Victorian Lady Doctors. Tea available, some non-standard Consuite fare. Tea party will be going until 1:30. Thank you.